Billionaire left the safe open to test his black maid. Her reaction left him speechless. Richard Weston, a billionaire with a sprawling mansion, had always trusted the people he hired. But after several valuable items went missing from his home, he grew suspicious. He had hired maids with glowing recommendations, yet something was always stolen. It was driving him mad, not just because of the loss, but because he couldn't figure out who was behind it. In a moment of frustration, Richard hired a new maid, Emma, a young black woman, hoping for a fresh start. But he had his doubts. To test her loyalty, he secretly set up a hidden camera and left his safe wide open, filled with cash and expensive jewelry, expecting her to take the bait. When Emma came to clean the room, she saw the open safe but didn't touch a single thing. She went about her work calmly, not even glancing at the valuables inside. Richard, watching from the camera, was stunned. Could she be the trustworthy person he had been waiting for? "Where are you watching from? Let me know." Emma had no idea that Richard was watching her every move. For her, this job was a chance to build a new life, one that had always seemed just out of reach. She had grown up in a small neighborhood, where opportunities were scarce, but now she was cleaning the mansion of one of the wealthiest men in the country. It was a dream, and she was determined to prove herself. Her days started early, and she worked with care, making sure each room was spotless. Emma wasn't just cleaning for Richard, she was cleaning for herself, for her future. She wanted to show that she could be trusted, that her past didn't define her. But Richard's suspicions were still fresh in his mind. He had watched her quietly as she cleaned his bedroom that day, her hands steady, never reaching for the open safe. He had seen maids before who had faltered, who had been tempted by the riches surrounding them. But Emma was different. She was calm, composed, and respectful. Richard didn't know whether to be relieved or cautious. Could it really be this simple? Could he have found someone who was truly trustworthy? As the days passed, Emma continued her work with the same dedication. But Richard, though impressed by her demeanor, found himself still doubting. He'd been betrayed too many times before. Could one act of kindness truly be enough to convince him that she wasn't like the others? He needed to know for sure, but he didn't know how to ask her without breaking the trust he was starting to feel. Meanwhile, Emma began to notice something about Richard. He wasn't the cold, distant billionaire she'd imagined. He seemed a bit withdrawn, unsure, even. She could sense the tension that weighed on him. It wasn't just about the mansion or the money, it was something deeper. One afternoon, as she was preparing to leave for the day, Richard approached her. His tone was softer than she expected, almost hesitant. "How are you adjusting here, Emma?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. She smiled, adjusting the mop in her hands. "It's been good, Mr. Weston. Thank you for giving me the chance." He nodded slowly, as if he wanted to say more, but hesitated. "I trust you," he said finally, and just like that, something shifted in the air. It was the first time he'd said those words without suspicion or doubt. Emma didn't know how to respond. Her heart fluttered, but she simply nodded, taking a deep breath. "I won't let you down," she promised. But as she walked away, the thought lingered in her mind. Could she really live up to this trust? And for Richard, the question remained. Was this finally the person who would restore his faith in others? Or would he find himself betrayed once again? The next few days would test them both. Would Emma's actions continue to reflect her words? And would Richard finally allow himself to trust again, without fear of losing what mattered most? Let me know your thoughts so far. What do you think will happen next? As the days went on, Richard couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and uncertainty toward Emma. Her work ethic was impeccable. She always arrived on time, worked hard, and treated everything with the utmost care. It seemed that she was exactly what he had been searching for, honest, hard-working, and dependable. But after everything that had happened in his life, Richard was still afraid to let his guard down completely. Emma, on the other hand, was starting to feel more at home in the mansion. She had settled into her routine, but she knew she couldn't be complacent. Richard hadn't just hired her to clean, he had given her a chance to prove herself. And in a way, she was proving it to herself too. proving that she was capable of something more than just surviving. She had a chance now, and she wasn't going to throw it away. But the atmosphere in the mansion was still charged with the tension Richard had carried for so long. It wasn't just about the missing items anymore. It was about trusting others, something Richard had never been able to do fully. His business dealings, his personal life, it had all been built on walls, on protecting himself from the possibility of betrayal. One evening, as Emma was dusting the shelves in Richard's study, she heard the soft click of the door behind her. Richard stood there, watching her. His face was unreadable, as usual, but there was something different in his eyes, an unspoken question. "Emma," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "There's something I need to ask you." Emma stopped her work and turned to face him. "Of course, Mr. Weston. What is it?" He stepped forward, his gaze never leaving her. "I need to know something. Do you ever feel tempted? With everything here, everything that's mine, do you ever think about taking something?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. She knew where this was headed. She knew the trust she had worked so hard to build was now on the line. She took a slow breath, her hands gripping the cloth in her hands tightly. She could feel the weight of the question, the silence stretching between them. "No," she said firmly, meeting his eyes. "I've never thought about it. What you have here, it's yours. I'm just grateful for the chance to be here. To work for you." Richard looked at her for a long moment, as though weighing her words. He knew she was telling the truth. There was no hesitation in her voice, no uncertainty. She meant every word. But the weight of his past, the countless betrayals, still pressed on him. Could he really trust her completely? Richard's eyes softened, and for the first time, he let down his guard, just a little. "I appreciate your honesty, Emma. You're different." Emma smiled, though her heart still pounded in her chest. She hadn't expected this moment to come so soon. But she also knew this was her chance, to prove, once again, that she was worthy of his trust. But deep down, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Richard's skepticism wasn't entirely gone. And as she continued her work, she wondered if she could ever fully overcome the past that seemed to haunt Richard, or if their journey together would always be marked by doubt. The next day, Emma entered Richard's study to find something unexpected. The safe was no longer open. But this time, Richard had placed something inside, a valuable piece of jewelry he had kept hidden for years. Would Emma make the right choice? Would she betray his trust, or would she prove, once and for all, that integrity truly mattered? What do you think Emma will do next? Let me know your thoughts. The next morning, Emma stood in Richard's study, cleaning near the open safe where Richard had placed a valuable family heirloom, an expensive diamond necklace. The temptation was undeniable. She could easily take it, but her integrity kept her grounded. She passed the safe without touching a thing, continuing her cleaning task. Richard, secretly watching through the hidden camera, saw her hesitate near the safe but choose not to touch the necklace. He was impressed. This time, Emma had proven herself once again. He had expected a test, but he hadn't expected the loyalty she demonstrated. Later, Richard approached Emma in the kitchen. "I saw what you did this morning," he said. "You passed the test. I trust you." Emma's heart raced. Richard offered her a promotion to be his personal assistant, recognizing her honesty and dedication. It was an unexpected opportunity that could change her life. She paused, realizing she had earned not just his trust, but a chance to transform her future. Yet, she couldn't shake the pressure of living up to it. Could she rise to the challenge? The offer was more than just a job, it was a test of her own capabilities. Could Emma step into this new role and prove herself worthy? Emma accepted Richard's offer to become his personal assistant, though she knew it wasn't just a job, it was a chance to redefine her future. The transition from maid to assistant was a whirlwind. She was tasked with organizing Richard's schedule, managing important meetings, and making decisions that once seemed far beyond her reach. At first, the responsibility felt overwhelming. Richard's empire was vast, and Emma's every move felt scrutinized. But as the days passed, something changed. She grew into the role. She started anticipating Richard's needs before he even asked, and the respect from her colleagues grew. She was no longer just the maid, she was an integral part of the team. Richard, too, began to see her in a new light. She wasn't just someone he could trust, she had become someone he could rely on. Emma's commitment and professionalism were unmatched, and it was clear she was much more than the job she started with. But with her growing responsibilities came a new challenge, her past. Emma had grown up in difficult circumstances, and despite the luxury surrounding her now, she couldn't forget where she came from. The temptation to slip back into old habits, old doubts, was always lurking. One evening, after a long day, Richard found her sitting alone in the study, a quiet look on her face. He walked in and, for the first time, didn't just see an employee. He saw someone who had fought hard to get here. "You're doing great, Emma," he said, his voice softer than usual. "I'm proud of you." Emma met his eyes, feeling a sense of accomplishment and gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Weston. I couldn't have done it without the trust you've shown me." Richard smiled. "I didn't just trust you with my empire. I trusted you with my faith in people. You've restored that." But as Emma stood by Richard's side, she knew the journey wasn't over. There were still many hurdles to overcome. Could she continue to prove herself worthy of the trust she had earned? Could she balance the expectations of the world around her with the person she had become? The stakes had never been higher, and Emma's future had never been so uncertain. The next chapter of her life was just beginning. Emma had fully settled into her new role as Richard's personal assistant. The mansion felt less like a place of work and more like home, her home, a place she had earned. No longer just a maid, she was now part of Richard's world, managing everything from business meetings to personal matters. With every task, she proved herself not just capable, but invaluable. Her attention to detail and loyalty had made her indispensable. Richard, too, had changed. He had started to trust again, not just in his empire but in people, especially Emma. Over time, their relationship had evolved beyond employer and employee to one of mutual respect. He saw the person she was, the strength, the integrity, the resilience. He realized that Emma was the key to not just his business but to his life, someone who had helped restore his faith in others. One evening, as they worked late into the night, Richard looked over at Emma, who was sorting through papers. A quiet smile tugged at his lips. "You've done more than just help me run this place," he said softly. "You've helped me believe in what I thought was lost: trust, loyalty, and honesty." Emma looked up, feeling a lump in her throat. She had come so far. From cleaning his mansion to sitting beside him, making decisions that affected his empire, she had proven herself. More than that, she had built something valuable. Not just her career, but a relationship based on trust. The very trust she had fought so hard to earn. "Thank you for everything, Richard," Emma said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I never imagined this kind of life. But now, I see that it's not just about where I am, but who I am." Richard nodded, his eyes reflecting a deep gratitude. "You've changed everything, Emma. You've helped me see things I never saw before." As they sat there, in the quiet of the mansion that had once felt so cold and empty, both of them knew that this was only the beginning. Emma had found her place, not just in Richard's world, but in a life that was her own. A life where integrity, loyalty, and hard work had led her to the very opportunity she had always dreamed of. If you've been inspired by Emma's journey of trust, loyalty, and transformation, please give this story a thumbs up, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more uplifting tales. Thank you for being part of this journey. And as the night drew to a close, Emma realized that her true transformation wasn't just in her job or her status, it was in the way she had learned to trust herself and the world around her. She was no longer the woman she once was. She had become someone stronger, someone who could face whatever came next with confidence. And for the first time in a long while, Richard believed the same.